Hey friends, this is Ari Koinuma, and today I wanted to share with you my thoughts on Imagine Dragons' Believer. And the reason I picked this song is because my 11-year-old son listens to Imagine Dragons, and Imagine Dragons in fact are the only rock band that he listens to. And most of the other time he is listening to electronic and gaming music, and so the only rock band, well, it's debatable whether they rock or not, but Imagine Dragons being the only band that he listens to, and their lyrics are not exactly um, all that accessible to kids of his age. So I'm just wondering, what did they do that made them such an all age appeal, right? So Believer is one of the catchier songs, and is a big hit, and everybody knows it. So I just wanted to see what's in this song that makes such a crossover. I shouldn't say crossover because that's about hopping genres, but such a wide appeal. So here it is. The song starts out. Well, the first thing I would say about this song is that it's a one progression song, in that the song has three chords: B flat minor, which is an odd key or an odd chord for a guitar. It's probably a B minor that got um, tuned down half a step because it does go very high. And then goes to G flat major, and then it goes to A diminished, a fully diminished seventh chord. And that's the other twist with this chord progression is that this is a very colorful chord that has a very strong tendency to want to resolve to the tonic, which is the original first chord of the key, the basic chord. Yeah, right. Uh, and that comes in play here and there in terms of what this chord provides to this song as a color. But otherwise, that's it. There's one place in the song where the band deviates away from that chord progression, but it comes at the right before the last chorus, and they're just trying to extend the sense of build going up to the final climax. So really, for all intents and purposes, this is a one progression song. And the other thing I would say is that the drum beat, it has a very distinct rhythmic motif, and it's so distinct in fact that again the song starts out with it, and if you hear it live, I mean the drummer starts it and you recognize the song. And when the song is built upon a rhythmic motif that is so distinct and recognizable, that really ups the level of catchiness and impact, because rhythm is the foundation of a song, and when the rhythm has a specific, again, recognizable motif, then the whole song is lifted up. So on top of that drum beat, the guitarist is playing this very simple pattern, which really is not directly correlated with the drum pattern, but between this dotted rhythm and what the drummer is doing, it just kind of creates a interesting rhythmic foundation or backdrop. And then finally, the third element in the song is the vocal melody. So it's basically a drums, guitar motif, and then the only thing that's really changing in the song is the vocal melody. So the vocal melody goes something like this. So that's a nice catchy melody there. I often talk about tuneful versus untuneful melody, and I define tunefulness as the characteristic where you can take out the words, you can take out the voice, just play the melody on an instrument, and that is still interesting enough to listen to on its own. And this melody, my friends, is a tuneful melody. it's very distinct and it's very recognizable, very hummable, a quality melody there. And then there's a big jump going right up to that note, and then whenever you have this oohs and ahs and nanas in in a melody, that often serves as the again additional hook. A lot of songs, memorable melodies tend to have those kind of devices built in, and then by going up to a big jump to that note, it just grabs the audience attention. Now this following that section. The next section is what I consider like a quintessential Imagine Dragons kind of melody. It goes something like this. So, is that tuneful? It's borderline. I think it's somewhere in the middle. It's not that boring because the rhythm is very distinct. And this kind of rhythmic, quasi-hip-hop kind of singing is something that the singer Dan Reynolds does really well. But notice this rhythm. That's a triplet. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And triplets are cool little devices too, because every time you hear it against a rhythm that is usually divided into 2s and 4s, it creates this tension that really sort of sticks out. And even if you don't recognize it as, oh, there's a triplet, it just makes the music more interesting. So that's really cool that he incorporates that into the melody. And then so after those A section and B section, then the song goes into chorus, and then he goes into this really high register. Right? And then starting out the song lower and then going to a high register for chorus is a really tried and true songwriting technique, and that the key there is to start low so that you have somewhere higher to go. But this melody and then the one before, it ends on this note, which is an A. That's the diminished chord, right? And then because it ends on that and it doesn't really resolve it, it just gives it a nice open-ended, unsettling kind of feeling to the chorus, and then it makes you want to. It makes you want to listen to it some more. When something like that happens, and if it's resolved like that, then there's a sense of finality to it, and then you're like, okay, we're done, we can go home, right? So the song is a single progression song, and then there are 3 different melodies that come and go. So I would say this is a very efficient use of material, and it's really mature of them to just use fairly minimal stuff. And when a song has just one progression, the audience quickly builds familiarity with the harmony of the song, and it sounds very comforting. It's just very easy to understand. It's very easy to get into. The song has parts that come and go. You're all constantly processing, trying to understand what's going on, and that kind of songs has their own charm too. I'm not saying it's either good or bad, but this song's strength is in its simplicity. So the song has basically those 3 components: the rhythm, the guitar part, and then the vocal melody. And in fact, the song is such minimalist arrangement that the bass player, Ben McKee, doesn't find a place for his bass in the song. So live he ends up playing additional percussion and then just singing backup vocals. But really the charm of this song, and I've seen it happen with other really massively popular songs too, like Adele, is that the band knows its strength. It knows that there's the distinct rhythm. It knows that there is a strong vocal melody. And they just get out of the way and let those things just tell the story. And that seems to be, again, something that really works well for this kind of music that is looking for a big audience because there's just not a lot of clutter and it's just very easy to understand. And as musicians, uh, actually the three of the four band members went to Berklee College of Music, which is a very esteemed popular music school, so they are trained musicians. And when you're trained or accomplished musicians, it's really easy to want to be clever with music and want to do things, tinker with things. But these guys, they are very content to keep it dead simple. They the drummer and the guitarist are kind of like looper pedal in a way. They're just playing the same thing throughout the song, most of the song. Of course there are subtle variations in live situations, but so that's what I really admire about this song, is that restraint and minimalism that they introduced to this song, which makes the focus and the strengths of the song really clear, and then there's nothing just cluttering the way. But when the song has those only minimal elements to it, then of course the parts that are in it have to be really good, and that's where, again, the band knows its strengths in Dan Reynolds' ability to deliver these big, bold statements. And the thing about that is that, again, for the song to have big audience, it needs to have this very clear sentiment, and the message often is, I'm not saying there's no exception, but it often has this very easy to understand, clear-cut sort of content in the lyrics as well. And the singer cannot be holding back at all. He cannot be, or he or she, if the singer has is cynical or jaded or just shy or playing coy, it just doesn't work. You have to just come out and just go, just really give it all. And that actually is easier said than done. I certainly have a hard time doing that as a singer. I think that I'm singing and I think I'm emoting, and I listen to my own singing and I'm like, I don't feel anything, right? With Dan Reynolds, he can just get up there and he can just preach it like his life depends on it, and it just really, there's no holding back, there's no restraining, just he's all in, and that is really what carries this song. And like I said before, everybody else just kind of gets out of the way. But then as far as the recording, they do have these hotshot producers and songwriters that are coming, and I think they help shape the band's sound quite a bit. Despite minimalism, there is a lot of heavy production going on, and you can tell that that's something that's coming from outside forces, because I've checked, while preparing for this video, I checked out some of their live videos, and that included a couple of acoustic unplugged performances. So this is an occasion where the band is left to their own devices in terms of how do you reinterpret your own material. You're not in a big stadium with big production. What do you do with the song? And the performances that I saw, I only saw a couple of them, but the ones that I saw, it was rather awkward, I must say. The song, to begin with, is in such high key. I don't know if anybody other than Dan can really sing that. It's very unusual for a whole band to be able to sing in this B flat to D flat kind of range. So understandably, when they're playing live, they come down like a couple whole steps, and then when they're playing unplugged, they come down even further into completely different key, which is totally reasonable. I'm not saying they shouldn't do that, but they still try to do this big chorus thing where all of them singing together, and actually the bass player Ben, he actually plays the bass in this case, and the strength of the song and the arrangement kind of gets lost, and it's kind of awkward. And I understand from a producer's point of view that we have all this technology and toys to make it sound slick and accessible and perfect, and you feel like you want to do that to make the music approachable to today's audience. But it's kind of a double-edged sword. I'm not opposed to any production. I'm not opposed to all production touches. Don't get me wrong. But when it's really heavy-handed, it has the danger of uh, sounding dated later. We'll have to see in a few years, 5, 10, 15 years, how this recording will come across. Because if you look back at recordings from like 80s, where it was using the state-of-the-art technology of then right now you listen to it and a little bit sounds dated. And then the other, of course, danger is that it robs some of the humanity out of the music, and it makes it very artificial sounding. And like the drums, for example, is a great case in point, in that it sounds so processed that it hardly sounds like a real drum anymore, even though the drummer Daniel is playing that whole riff. So when the band is stripped away from all those production touches, the heart of the song gets lost a little bit. And what makes music stand the test of time, in my opinion, is the human element in the performance. And that when the singer does, the intonation is just a little off here and there, and there's a little imperfection in the rhythm, and just nothing is ever played perfectly the same, that sort of thing. That's the subtle things that sort of make the listening experience richer, and you don't get as tired of it even you listen to it many times, that sort of thing. So with this song, with this band's approach, that would be my one sort of suggestion or 2 cents to the band, is that guys, you might want to think a little bit more about those heavy modern production touches, and that you want to sort of maintain your artistic and creative control a lot closer to the band, within the band if possible, so that when all those studio professionals go away, you still know what it is about your band that really makes the difference. And as far as this song is concerned, I think the song itself can be presented in different contexts, and it's perfectly possible, in my mind, to do this song unplugged. I mean, that part is perfectly simple, and so just don't go for the sort of a quasi big chorus, because you know that without the production you can't really achieve that effect. So then you might want to just forget about the big and just focus on intimacy and smallness, and then hey, believer, hey, believer, that sort of thing, right? I mean, the song and the melody is quality enough that it can be presented with just acoustic guitar and vocal melody, and it can stand, but the band just seems not able to make that judgment call in terms of what made their sort of original vision of the song possible, and then they can't quite sort of adjust to a different context. So Imagine Dragons' Believer, it's a big hit with all age appeal despite the darker subject matter, and I think the band pulls that off because the band knows where their strengths lie, and they just know how to cut out everything else from the picture and just make their strengths come through crystal clear, and that's how you write a song that has the potential to be hit. And again, in order for a song to be hit, it has to be impactful in one way or another. That's like a prerequisite. So, well, most of the time. So if you want to create music that will really reach out to its audience, I think that's a lesson that we musicians can take away from this song. But in addition to that, I think it also applies to larger context of life. In that, I don't know about you, but I always often think about what's wrong with me and what's wrong with my life and what are the things that I need to fix. And it's always about finding what's wrong, something going wrong, and then fixing it. But what if you thought about it in where are my strengths? What are the things I do well? Where are the things in my life that are going actually great? And just focused on that and cut out all the things that are not going well. Maybe we can make more things happen that way and be happier and all that. So just something to think about, right? Anyway, as always, thanks again for watching my video, and if you have any questions or comments, just post it down below and I'll respond as I can. And that I have my own original music and other videos too, so check me out and let me know what you think. Alright? I'll see you next time. Thank you. Forgetting, I learn now